Hello world, it is Wednesday, January 13th, 2021. Kind of another overcast winter day in Ohio. A little warmer, it was close, it was in the low 30s I think this morning when I went out for a run. And looking out, it looks like it's going to be pretty much that for the next week or so. No big changes in the weather. Today's devotion is entitled Shining in the Shadows, and it's written by Kenneth Samuel. And Kenneth bases the devotion upon the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verses 30 through 31, New Living Translation. He is the one I was talking about when I said, "A man is coming after me who is far greater than I am, for he existed long before me. I did not recognize him as the Messiah, but I've been baptizing with water so he might be revealed to Israel." Kenneth writes, ego. So much energy, pride, reputation, and identity packed into that three-letter word. Not much that we do in life escapes the pervasive consideration of how it will affect our persona. Having learned well that our playing small does not serve the world, we practice humility with a guarded caution. No one who knows their value ever wants to be overlooked or denied the recognition they've earned. Yet here is John the Baptist, the prolific first-century prophet of Israel, using all his personal and spiritual cachet to promote the significance of an upstart Nazarene rabbi with sketchy credentials. And turning the spotlight away from himself toward Jesus, John the Baptist was practicing much more than guarded humility. John was signaling that his own greatness could only be realized by his diminishment in the presence of one greater than himself. Every healthy ego knows when to bow before virtues that are more worthy and more enduring than self. When strong personalities surrender their demands in service of family cohesion, families survive. When political officials sacrifice personal aggrandizement for public service, democracy is renewed. When outstanding athletes keep their prominence in check to recognize the prowess of their teammates, championships are won. John the Baptist surrendered his greatness to Jesus. Jesus surrendered his greatness to love, and love surrenders all without ever losing its own awesome value. And Kenneth's prayer: Lord, use my greatness in service of that which is greater than me. Amen. Well, a couple things that come to mind in the reading of this devotion for me was that we get a lot more done when we work together, and we work for the greater good rather than just pursuing something only for and of ourselves. I think that's one of the issues many people have, and there seems to be this pervasive thing in the United States that if everybody just worked so hard to get as much as they could for themselves, everyone would be fine. That doesn't really work, and that's not the community or the creation that God envisioned at creation. I truly believe that. This devotion also reminded me of one time. It was probably 25, 30 years ago or so. Laurel was still playing soccer, and she was a really good soccer player. And it was about the time they were just beginning the Olympic development program for women playing soccer in the United States, and to form a U.S. Olympic team, or I should say national team, not Olympic team. And there were tryouts, and then there were a number of competitions regionally, and then or locally, and then regionally, and then statewide. And she competed in those and actually made it to the state finals, but did not get selected to be on the team from Michigan that was going to go on and compete with teams from every other state to try to find the best soccer players in the world, or in the United States, I should say, to form the U.S. women's team. But the team that she played with, many of the people she played with, they had played together since they were teenagers. So they knew each other really well, and they played well together as a team. And they played as a team, not as a bunch of stars. And so the coach of the Michigan team, a select team, made up of the top players in Michigan, asked if Laurel's team would be willing to scrimmage to play against that select team for practice purposes, and so they did. And Laurel's team slaughtered them. I mean, it was almost embarrassing how many goals they scored, and I think it was 4 or 5 to nothing. And what I really attribute it to is, while the girls or the women on Laurel's team individually didn't have the same level of skills on that select team, they had played together so long they truly meshed and were a team. It was almost like they knew where the other person was going to go and would pass the ball into space where they anticipated the person would pick it up and be able to score. Where the other team, each player seemed to try to do everything by themselves and did not rely on their teammates. And that's ego. I think nowhere but in nowhere more than soccer do you really see that. It doesn't matter how good individual players are on a soccer team. If they're not playing together as a team, they won't be successful. And I think that's true of life. If people are not willing to work together and to give up, perhaps sacrifice something of themselves or for themselves for the greater good, they're not going to win. I mean, the team is not going to win. We are all not going to be raised up. That is so necessary. And I think Jesus tried to instill that in his disciples and is still trying to instill in us that today, that we need each other. We have to rely upon each other. So I hope you have a good day. I hope this gives you some food for thought. And I will try to talk to you again tomorrow.